Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another AO2 Management webinar. This month, we are going to be talking about mostly the Prosper Show, but this year, Prosper and Shop Talk took place at the same time in Las Vegas, so a lot of us were attending events for both of these shows, and a couple of us here were speaking at Prosper. One of us here got to speak at a Shop Talk event, so we've got a lot to share with you from both of these events. So thank you for joining us today. And we'll jump right in with some housekeeping while we give everyone some time to join us live right now. So just as a reminder, or if you've never joined us before, generally what we like to do is keep this very casual, conversational. We're going to share with you some takeaways from the show, but we'll take questions throughout. So just make sure if you have questions that are relevant to whatever we're talking about in the moment, make sure you're putting those into the Q&A. You should see that down at the bottom of your screen, a little box with a question mark in it. And then if you have some general chit chat, anything you want to share with us, generally or with the entire audience, maybe you want to tack something on to something the panelists have said, go ahead and put that in the Q&A. That just helps, or into the chat, sorry, screwing it up right off the bat. Put those in the chat. That makes sure that we keep the Q&A clean and we can get to all of your questions, but everybody can interact with the chat and everything that's happening in there. All right, we are a couple of minutes in here and we have lots of panelists joining us today and lots of things to get into. So I think we're ready to go ahead and jump into introductions. And this is a fun game we play every time where I try to go in some kind of order that makes sense. I want to introduce our guests first, or let them introduce themselves, and try and do it alphabetically, which is tricky with two ROBs. So Kristen, you are first, and then you get to throw it over to whoever is next after you.
Awesome. I'm Kristen. I'm a channel development director at GS1 US. So it's not-for-profit standards organization that helps businesses uniquely identify, capture, and share products and company. And I will toss it right over to Rob.
Thanks, Robyn. My name is Rob Wiltsey. I'm the founder and CEO of VideoFresh, and we do all things video related for e-commerce sellers, particularly on Amazon, to increase traffic and conversions using videos.
I think that makes me up. So I'm Robyn Johnson. I'm the CEO of Marketplace Blueprint. We're a full service agency that handles listing, advertising, compliance on Amazon. And at Prosper, I spoke about smart automations and why AI might not be working for you in your business the way that everybody else is saying it. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, thank you. And then from the AO2 team, we have a couple of people as well. So going alphabetically again, Alexi, it is your turn.
Hey, I'm Alexi. I'm our senior account director here at AO2 Management. So I oversee and kind of touch a little bit of all of our brands on the Amazon side. So a lot of our brands are here on the webinar. So it's good to see your names. But yeah, so I'll let Nathan introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Nathan, founder of AO2 Management and the Kaizen Investment Fund. Really honored to be here. We got such a big panel full of great people, so this is going to be fun.
Awesome. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining today. Just really quickly, I'm Jessica Wright. For those of you who have not joined us before, haven't seen AO2 at events, I'm the president of AO2, and I usually host our webinars here, which is fun. I get to come hang out with all my friends, but I have very low pressure of having to deliver anything of too much value. So I am very, very lucky to get to do what I do. All right, so jumping in today, for anybody, I know we've had a couple people just join, so just really quickly, I'll reiterate, we're talking about the Prosper Show and Shop Talk, both of which are, really premier events in the retail and e-commerce space. Shop Talk focuses a little bit more on the traditional retail, whereas Prosper is all things e-commerce, with a big focus on Amazon. Prosper has 4 learning tracks that are really applicable to anyone in any part of retail, but especially the e-commerce. So today we're planning to talk about those 4, and I think we're gonna launch a poll now just to see what the audience wants to hear first. So we've got four tracks: growth opportunities, marketing and advertising, seller ops, business strategy, and then trends and insights. So would love to hear from you Oh, and that last one, sorry. Trends and insights, switch that for social selling. That is the trend this year, is social selling. So let us know which of those you want to hear more about, and then that'll help us determine the order we want to go in. We're going to leave this live for about 2 or 3 more seconds, but pretty strong trend here towards growth opportunities. So we can go ahead and shut down that poll, and we're going to kick things off with growth opportunities. So a lot of things in the e-commerce space. What are growth opportunities? That's additional marketplaces, international markets, affiliate marketing, lots of different areas of business there. I'll throw it over to the panelists if anybody wants to kick us off just with, what did you hear? What kind of things were you hearing in the space about growth opportunities at the Prosper Show, or what kind of insights did you get in that area that you might want to share with the audience today? And I know if nobody has any immediate thoughts, international is always a hot topic, especially with everything going on in the US right now. People might be looking at those alternate marketplaces.
Well, it's a testament to how fast our industry moves that, there was a lot of talk about, there has been a lot of talk about Temu, and now with de minimis over for right now, at least, then that changes things quite a bit. There was a lot of talk in a lot of sessions about Walmart. Walmart was there in a big way trying to really promote. They are definitely trying to reach out to Amazon sellers at a time when Amazon is adding new fees and changing things a lot. Then I think that there is a good potential. I talked to the folks at Best Buy. They're looking to launch their marketplace in May. So I think that there are new places. International is always a little tricky because you have to get your inventory there. So it's a big lift. And, there was a session specifically on Latin America, which I wasn't able to make that one, but I'm assuming they talked a lot about Mercado Libre, which is a big platform down in Central and South America. So if you're looking to expand there, then that's an option. But those were kind of my initial thoughts.
I think
Yeah.
another area too, and there's a lot of different groups that are doing that are helping with influencers. So there's a way to, utilize Amazon through their influencer program, as well as a lot of partners out there in the space. But just making sure that if you are utilizing those, that you're setting up things correctly so that you're getting credit for them and not just driving traffic to your listings, and then not getting the attribution link set up correctly, and just making sure from the foundation that as you're looking to expand into those new areas, that you're putting the right content in front of the customer and that you're then getting that credit. So they talked a lot about that too.
Yeah, and I think I know we have a partner. So if this is something, if you're watching today and you're interested in that Latin American expansion, we do have a partner that is very well versed in Mercado Libre, and also is really well connected with the Amazon Mexico team. And so there's a couple different levers that can be pulled to be able to make that a very smooth transition. And I know Nate is really passionate about Amazon Japan. We've talked about doing a session specifically on that. So I don't know, Nate, if you have anything you want to mention about, Japan expansion, what people should be thinking about, if that's a viable area.
Yeah, I mean, to sum it up, Japan is one of the easiest countries to launch in, just from a regulation and speed. Yeah, like the amount of lag time it takes to go into anywhere in Europe, it just takes a while, not just for shipping, but also for regulatory reasons. And so, I think this last month we set up a client in Amazon Japan, like start to finish in like a month. So it is really beneficial to, I think this could be one of the best times ever to look into launching internationally, just on avoiding the tariffs while everything's kind of in flux, and being able to just, plant your flag in a different place. One specific thing that I really liked was they said, localize your listings, don't just translate. Like I love that. And like this is something we always talk about and we work on, but that just really hit for me. And you think of, I know Robyn, like you do a lot with Mexico, and like on a podcast in the past, we've talked about Spanish. Like the difference between Spanish and Mexico and Spain is, you know, just completely different. And even on the Japan side, like I used to live in Tokyo, like people in Tokyo speak a different Japanese than they do in Kyoto. And how you're conjugating your verbs and how you're writing is pivotal to make sure that, of course, like your listings make sense, but you're also not like offending your ideal customer. So if you are, you know, more geared towards, you know, let's say like office or business related products that would sell to people in Tokyo, you should have a completely different listing than if you're selling, you know, cool jackets to people anywhere else in Japan. And yeah, so like that's just a really good example. Like I don't think ChatGPT can translate that specific on like the conjugations you're using for specific areas within a country or in different countries that speak the same language.
Yeah, and beyond just that, the translations and the different like verbiage or things to use, it's like different holidays, different, you know, a country may celebrate all the same holidays, but then locally they may have different traditions for celebrating those things. And like hitting on that with your keywords or what's in your images is also really critical.
You know, in the localization, you know, like even if you think English to English, like cart, buggy, chips, French fries, those make a big difference. But in localizing the text is incredibly important, but it's also important to localize the images. And you might think, well, if I fix the text, I just fix the text there. Are the complexions and the hair types for your shampoo the same ones that you want to highlight? In Mexico, you might use somebody that has a darker complexion. In Spain, the complexions are a lot lighter. And then you need to really think, is there a market for your product? So if you're selling soccer or rugby, yes, you know, some of those European countries can be great. If you're selling, you know, a product that is not widely adopted, let's say you're selling footballs, that might not get as much margin in the EU or in certain places in the world. So think about, is your customer actually there? Because if, you know, they're smaller markets to begin with, but if your customer isn't actively there, then you could be tying up inventory that you could be using in other locations. So, but think about, you know, you want always, and if you're not doing this with your products on Amazon.com, you know, inclusion matters. So, you know, if you have a product that can be used by multiple like age groups or different things, you want to have those represented in your images to help with conversion.
Rob, I told you I'd put you on the spot, so doing it now, but does that apply to video as well?
Yeah, I was thinking about
The video's fresh.
Right. Yeah, I was. Oh, yeah, Robyn or Rob? You said Rob. Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, absolutely. Like, I think that a lot of what we do with video is capture the lifestyle around the product, and I think that can be so contextual depending on different regions and different areas. And so, I think that video is especially an area where you really want to. And actually, we actually have a lot of people, you know, from other cultures, kind of saying, "Hey, we want to resonate in America, make us feel like an American brand because that's who we are," you know. So I think that totally people can really detect those like that authenticity that like this is resonating in their culture. So I think that's like really important with your videos, with your text, with your images, all your media for sure.
And you know,
And
you think about like even like if you have a kitchen product, if you have a high-end kitchen product in the US, it's going to be in a big kitchen with fancy cabinets. And but if you're in selling to European audiences or to a Japanese audience, even in a high income earning household, that kitchen's going to be much smaller. So to have that authenticity means to match the lifestyle that for that avatar in that country.
Yeah.
so true. Rob, since you're off mute, another area of expansion that I think might be relevant to what you're doing with video, and tell me if I'm wrong, but beyond like what other countries or, you know, marketplace expansions, expanding a brand's audience beyond who they're already talking to. And so Gen Z, millennials, that's a big focus for brands. And I feel like video plays a big part in that. Is that is that a true statement, I guess? And then is that,
Yeah,
is
100%.
that
Yeah,
something that
so
is
true.
part of your strategy? Yeah.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, so not only like not only different regions, but like just different generational
Yeah.
uh demographics too. Like absolutely, like the trends, like what resonates with you is probably very different than what resonates, with someone's like maybe your parents' age, and then maybe like like the younger generations. So I think it's so important to reflect those different aspects of your audience. And yeah, again, I mean, obviously, that's our world is just trying to figure out how do we capture that. And I think that a lot of times too, you almost like want someone in that demographic. Like as a brand, it's like if you're trying to figure out how to resonate, I think you probably want to like kind of partner with someone on that like is that demographic or is that age or whatever that case is. Because yeah, the brands that really you have to really um reflect that from ground zero, not just kind of like look from the outside and go, oh, what would a Gen Z be into? But like really, how can you actually maybe have someone on the inside that's really like helping navigate and just like listen to those people. So that's kind of a lot of what we do too, is kind of try to really listen and excavate as best we can with those different demographics, rather than kind of just trying to like mirror them. Like who can you actually maybe have alongside you in trying to capture that culture.
Yeah, and then probably different like different avenues for attracting those people, or how are you reaching them, right? Beyond just having an Amazon listing and putting a video on there, there's other things you need to be thinking about in terms of how are you actually speaking to that audience outside of your Amazon detail page.
Yeah, yeah, TikTok. I mean, obviously, yeah, it's like where are your customers? If it's younger people, they're going to be on TikTok. They're going to be in different social platforms. YouTube is an amazing platform. I mean, if you've seen the stats on YouTube, that's an amazing, like there's more. YouTube is now the number one platform, for example, that people watch on their TV, which is actually pretty wild to think about. YouTube is where it's like, where are the eyeballs already in your demographic, and how can you really eat and breathe that platform and participate in the culture of that platform. And especially off Amazon, like if you're trying to really get those branded keywords, you're trying to build that off Amazon brand presence, so that they're then on Amazon searching for your product, which is of course kind of like the gold standard, right? Um, then it's so important to kind of go, okay, off Amazon, where are my customers? What kind of content are they looking for already? Rather than just being self-promotional and things like that. How can you actually delight them on these different platforms in a way that's much more organic, much more authentic? And so, yeah, we could have a whole conversation about every individual platform and what that means, right?
Yeah.
For each of
And
those.
with roughly 1 minute left to cover this category, because I want to make sure we get into all of them. And building off of that, Robyn made a really good point earlier about how quickly things change in this industry. At Prosper and at Shop Talk, there was a huge presence from a lot of these different different marketplaces, especially at Shop Talk too. TikTok was a huge topic, and now we just saw, it. We had like a couple of days of is it or isn't it again, and we've got to stay on that again. But then with the de minimis, like Shein and Temu being kind of now not as much potential as we were even talking about 2 weeks ago at Prosper. Any quick tips from anyone on, I know Rob just mentioned YouTube, which was one that we weren't even talking about there, and Robyn mentioned Best Buy earlier. What non-Amazon marketplaces should our viewers be taking a look at then in the coming weeks with all of those changes that have happened even since Prosper? What's a top tip on best expansion opportunity right now? Open to anyone.
I think there's so much flux right now that I think right now what I'm telling clients is don't make a move unless you would have made it even if the things that have been happening recently haven't been happening. So when you're upset, your IQ can drop significantly, so we don't make the best decisions. So right now, imagine things were the way they were, would you still make that decision? And maybe you can temper that if you say, well, I'm not sure now. I think that, for me, if we're still in this issue with TikTok, is the likelihood that TikTok goes away is a lot higher than maybe it was 2 weeks ago when we thought it was going to be. So I think that you can take, you might need to look at re-examine where you want to focus your growth. But there's things that are changing so quickly that I think it's just being ready and making sure you're in a cash position to jump on those things as they can. And if you see a marketplace that's opening up that's in your niche, you should always jump on it and test, because being the first on those marketplaces can be really helpful. But making sure you're kind of watching where we are going to be in 3, 6 months, and imagining where you want to be in 5 years and taking actions that will be consistent with that, which I know is a really woo-woo answer and not exactly what you asked for, but
No, it's a good one though, because that is what like our audience wants to know, really what they need to be looking at, right? We don't want to be pitching things just to pitch it. What should they really be thinking, doing, and acting on right now? So that is a good answer. Thank you. To make sure we keep things rolling, we're going to move into the next topic now. The next topic that was outlined on the poll as an area of interest is going to be marketing and advertising, which encompasses so many things across e-commerce. So Amazon specific, like, sponsored ads, DSP, that kind of thing, but all of the external things, what you're doing on your Amazon pages, all the analytics and things to drive traffic. So Alexi, I know you attended a session at Prosper that you really enjoyed that kind of was in this area of how to, things to really think about for your product detail pages. So if you want to kick us off on this one, and then we'll open it up to everyone.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, I think from someone who came from a background of advertising and like, hey, let's just, optimize, put more money into this, grow the brand that way. I'm, working with a lot of brands right now where they don't have that budget. Like their profitability is getting slimmer. And so they want to figure out, how can I make more money without spending more money? And so one of the really good sessions that I sat through was just about just changing up your product detail page. So testing a different hero image, a different title, something else that you're not making any changes to the cost that you're putting in on the advertising side. But hey, let's take the best example was the one of it was a shorts. And so they had just like the shorts with the white background. And, there's 5-inch shorts, there's 7-inch shorts, there's 9-inch shorts for guys. It's like you can't tell by looking at that what that looks like. And so all they did was change the model, put a model in the listing with the model wearing those shorts. And they saw like a 40%, increase in clicks on their page. They had a good conversion rate once people got there, but their problem was they weren't standing out in the detail page. So like they're ranked or in the search. So they're ranking, they're hitting the spot, but just that small change that didn't cost them anything to do made that difference. And then updating those infographics, the A+ content, just making sure all your back end search terms are there. You're not stuffing things. You're actually putting things that the consumers want. The whole rollout with Rufus really increasing and giving the right content on the back end so that you can land in the good placements. I just thought that was such an interesting take of, let's not spend more money. Let's just change. It seems so obvious, but it's really something as small as that, of changing what you're doing on the product detail page, or shortening your title to mobile first with 80 characters or less, rather than the longer title. And they're seeing higher click through, actually people clicking on their listings when they weren't before, or getting, more clicks. So I think that to me was a huge takeaway, just in terms of marketing yourself different so you stand out on that search where it's just so flooded.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that's applicable not just to Amazon and your product detail pages on Amazon, but that same tactic is something that you can be using on Walmart, on Google, on Meta, across those different channels. So which kind of then opens up the door to, anybody have any, oh, Robyn, I see you're unmuted. I don't even have to prompt you.
Well, I actually just spoke at SMX Munich the week before Prosper to a non-Amazon audience, talking about taking what we do on Amazon and applying it to your D2C site. So things like using infographics, things like showing scale, showing length, and making sure you have videos, repeating content multiple places. All of those things that we have tested you've done the work, you've spent the money testing things. Now we want to apply that to your D2C site, because if we can save any money on Amazon fees, as much as as Amazon agencies, we want the sale to come through Amazon. We want what's best for our clients. And so sometimes that's making sure that we've applied those things to the D2C site. And then there might be a big brand listening that says, like, look, we're not going to be able to A/B test those things because we have to run it through legal and all those things. When we're working with, large publicly traded companies, sometimes we will run an A/B test either through an email list or through PickFu or something like that. So we have the data to show that it's worth running through legal and all of that stuff. So if you're in that position, sometimes that can be a place to test. Or if you feel like things are too turbulent and you don't want to change your detail page to A/B test, you can do that. And then, always start at your ad results. If you're seeing, clicks, or, if you're seeing your click-through rate drop, that might be a time to test or clarify. There could be a lot of competing listings that might be dropping off in your industry. So it could be something that you might want to circle back to things that you've already tested to see, if the landscape changes what's going to be optimal for your marketing KPIs and your content.
And
And if you're a luxury brand, you need to really make sure it's very clear you're a luxury brand. So sorry, Alexi.
No, you're good. Something too, Robyn talked a lot about AI during her session, and it was a theme of just, oh, I use this tool to do this thing. I use this tool to do this thing just across all of Prosper. But even just utilizing AI review softwares to figure out like what are consumers saying about not only your product, but also your competition, so that you can then call out in your listing, hey, these are negatives to our competitors, but like those are benefits to us. So let me call those out as benefits to us without undermining the competition that like you're undermining without calling them out against, Amazon's terms of service by saying we're better than these other people.
And just being like, on the up and up, like there's a way to do these things without having to like disparage other companies or, be a bully in the industry. It's the showcasing your pros instead of showcasing their deficits. That's a really good point.
Yeah. I mean, to summarize, it sounds like it's really just making sure that you're utilizing AI and your own brain to leverage your own data and data that's out there to maximize clicks and ad dollars. Like that really, yeah. If you can do that and you can make more money with less ads or have a higher conversion rate with less people coming to your listing, I mean, and same thing for a website, right? Like I would say another thing that was talked about, and it's just crazy to see where DSP has gone over the years. Like I remember when it was like, okay, we're gonna give Amazon $10,000 and like cross our fingers that like Amazon's gonna spend our money on their platform properly. And it's definitely changed, and it's really interesting to see what even just a couple $1,000 on DSP spend can do with a retargeting campaign. But yeah, just being able to look at all of these different areas of where you're spending money, where your conversion is, and maybe you do want to send more traffic to your website from a great YouTube ad. Like it really just depends on what the tea leaves are saying.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you just closed it out that way, because I don't think we're going to have time to like fully dive into this, but thinking about how you can do like that cross promotional stuff. Thinking about if you're doing everything you can to enhance what you've got on Amazon, and so therefore you don't have to spend as many advertising dollars on Amazon, how can you use YouTube to drive traffic to this place, to drive traffic here? How can you incorporate TikTok into that, or all of the social channels? Like there's so much opportunity to rethink how you're allocating that budget and spend it more wisely and incorporate more channels to get more traffic to different places where you might have different margins to play around with things differently. which I know is not getting into those details enough to tell you exactly what to do with that, but just to get your wheels turning about what you should be thinking about and the conversations you should be having within your organization or with it, service providers like us, if you're working with us, to make some informed decisions about what to do in the future. All right, moving on to the next topic, just to make sure we get a little bit of everything in here. I know there's a lot to dig into in the seller operations business strategy side of things. And Kristen, I'm going to have you open us up with this one because I know you spent a lot of time in the GS1 booth at Prosper and had a lot of conversations about business strategy and seller operations.
I did indeed. So did not get to attend as many sessions, it sounds like, as everybody else, but I did spend some quality time on the floor. And I think that a common thing that I was hearing from sellers coming up to the booth is, why do they need a G10 or a barcode? And so a common thing that we hear is, why can't I use this third-party sourced barcode versus a G10? I know up front, the G10 is a little bit more costly than a third-party sourced barcode, but in the end, something that we like to basically talk about is that starting with that G10 is going to save you money in the long run. So if you're looking to scale your company to other marketplaces like Amazon or Walmart, you're going to need that GS1 US G10. So a quote that I love to say, especially to sellers, I've kind of grabbed onto this, but it's, the longer that you're on the wrong train, the more expensive it is to get home. So I think that that is something that we lean into as far as helping sellers understand why starting with the correct information is most important. And then also we talk about like the power of the company prefix. So I think hearing sellers talk about, they may have one product right now, but their goal is to scale that.
Oh, I think we might have is it just me or did we all lose Kristen?
Leaning.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
We lost your audio for just a second. Yep.
Oh no, sorry.
Power of the prefix.
Power of the prefix. Awesome. Yeah. So a lot of Amazon sellers start with that one G10, which is absolutely perfectly fine. But I think having the opportunity to be on the floor, kind of talk about, more growth oriented companies or sellers who want to sell beyond Amazon or maybe open up to multiple sales channels, having that prefix is going to give them the ability to do that. So educating them on the difference between, starting with a third-party source versus a single G10 to that company prefix, and just leaning into the benefits of starting out there was a huge conversation on the floor.
Yeah, and I think that I could talk about this one topic all day. And I'm going to try not to and see if maybe anybody else on the panel has had experience with this, but it's wild to me that in 2025, we are still having the conversation about creating your listings with the right product data, and in particular, your G10s or your barcodes matching. But just in case there is anybody watching today who doesn't truly understand what we're talking about in this space, I don't know if, Alexi, I know you have a ton of experience, Robyn, I see you unmuted, like, give us a little bit more background on like what kind of problems people are experiencing because of this, or like what problems are you creating? What are we trying to avoid by what Kristen's talking about?
Like I did a whole episode on my podcast with Abe about UPCs and like the problems. First, you can be creating a problem for another brand because they go to create their list with their prefix and now it's already been used. But, that's not your problem. So you might say that's not a big deal. But, they are doing, especially since Amazon was found liable for recalls and things along those lines, they have been really, really cracking down. Now, this is a good business practice. And if you want to really build a business, I cannot tell you how important it is to make sure you have that real G10. But it will come back to bite you, and you could end up having to start over with a brand new listing, and Amazon will not feel bad about it. They will not cut you any space because it's very clear what the right way to do it was. So even if things go better than you ever hoped, it could completely stall your progress. So having that GTIN and using a unique one. We even had a company that they updated something on they changed the listing to use the same UPC for a different listing 5 years ago. And then they went to update the title last year, and Amazon said, oh, you fundamentally changed the product of this product. And so now we're going to give you a policy violation. So it will come back to bite you. So I agree with Jessica, like, please just don't do drugs, don't use recycled UPCs.
Yes, so important. And that is like one of my favorite topics and takeaways in the like seller ops and business strategy area. So I'm so glad that Kristen was able to join and talk about that today. And we need to have you on for a whole webinar just to talk about that topic. Because it is so critical and we're still seeing a lot of problems with that. But there's a lot more to unpack in this section too. You know, the things that Robyn talked about at Prosper about AI, but also I know a very topical thing right now, tariffs or anything else in this area. So I'll open it up to the wider group, you know, for any other comments or tips in this section. Nate, are you unmuted?
Yeah, I was just going to give an example. You know, one of our clients that we ended up investing in, as we now started to expand into different countries and then also into brick and mortar. We, you know, the brand had been around for, I think, 10 years, and they did not listen to Kristen's guidance. So it's now it is a really big struggle. And I love that analogy. Like the train went really far for 10 years one way, and now we're having to like restructure and redo so many listings and so many things in order to just list our products in other countries or put them into Walmart like stores and brick and mortar stores. So yeah, this is a real issue when you go to expand your business.
I love that. And I love that we have spent so much time talking about barcodes because I feel like it's such a niche thing and nobody cares. Nobody
Yeah.
cares. And
You
that's why
don't
it's still a
care until you
problem.
care,
I
right?
was
Right.
gonna
But we
say,
all-
you don't care until you have to care.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
really care.
Yeah. Right. When you lose your listing and the 3,000 reviews you've had and there's no way to link it back to the other thing. I really thought we'd spend the majority of this time talking about tariffs. I thought that's where we'd
I have
go.
some comments on tariffs.
it.
I know, so if you didn't have notifications on in the last hour, you might not have seen that Trump put a pause on 90-day pause on all tariffs except for China. So that changes things a little bit, but for a lot of people, it's still I mean, it's 125% tariff as of this moment at this recording, I think. And so, you know, that's a big change, but as we've seen, things have changed pretty quickly. So what I'm telling clients is that, you know, we don't want to panic, don't make knee-jerk decisions. And any decision that you make that's a big decision, wait 24 hours to make sure it still makes sense at the first cup of coffee after a good night's sleep. And then you can consider reducing or stopping discounts to slow the inventory that you're blowing through now so that you can hopefully have things settled before your next container arrives. You can consider tightening advertising KPIs or allocating budget to higher margin or items that you have deeper stock on. And if you're going to think you will have to raise prices, then we don't want to raise our prices suddenly ever on Amazon because we'll lose the buy box. So you might want to start thinking about incremental changes and then discounting down. We don't want to be the first one to rise though, because otherwise your competitor is going to get all those sales and you're going to lose ranking. So it really needs to be a strategic decision. And that's why having a really good ad partner is important, because they can walk you through those things. And then there's just like table stake things, you know, once a quarter, you should be going through and cutting any expenses. If you haven't used a subscription in 6 months, it's probably better for you to cancel it. Now is the time to look at your numbers, and then know that things have been changing quickly. So, you know, give it some time. And then when we have a better picture, then and just do things to prepare yourself and put yourself in the best cash flow situation for these things to happen. Even a 90-day pause doesn't really give people a lot of time to move manufacturing since we don't really know what will happen in 90 days. But start thinking about different creative ways to solve it. No dumb idea is a dumb idea. Write them all down because sometimes dumb ideas will give us better ideas. So I don't know if that's what you wanted or not.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And you said a couple of things that I thought were really important and maybe jumping off points for other people or just things that I'm thinking about. But my background being in toy manufacturing, thinking about, I would always say to people, like, you don't have to give away your products between Thanksgiving and Christmas. You know, I would always say, like, whoever has the like inventory the week before Christmas is winning Q4, because you're the one who on Amazon is going to have that product that's available for that 2-day delivery. So you don't have to give it away. At a certain point, pull back on those discounts. And I think the same thing kind of applies here, right? Because there's going to be uncertainty about producing more, getting more inventory in, and that's going to be a longer lead time. That point that you made about pulling back on those discounts now and making sure that you're going to be someone who has stock available when it matters, when other people are dropping off, because that ties back to something you said in the last topic area, actually, that I wrote down. Like, I hate to take advantage of anybody in a bad situation, but with competing listings dropping off, that totally changes the landscape for you. And whether they're dropping off for other reasons or they're dropping off because of these tariff reasons, if you have inventory, you're going to be able to start taking some of that, market share back from those listings that have dropped off. So, just making good choices about those things to make sure that you stay relevant on Amazon right now while all of this is in flux. Alexi?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention the I'm pretty sure and correct me if I'm wrong, the Prime Day dates like got announced while Prosper was going on. Like
The fact that it's going
the
to
fact
be
that it's,
4
I mean,
days.
not sorry, not the exact dates. Let me just preface.
Like, what did I
don't know the exact dates.
miss?
But like that Prime Day was going to be 4 days, and like we know it'll probably be in July, and so like decisions that brands are making now is if they're, going to be discounting right now and they're going to need to raise their price in a month or two is going to affect what they can run at Prime Day. So like be thinking about what knee-jerk reactions are happening. Like, can we just sit and chill? Or if you want to make small incremental, we're doing it with a lot of brands right now, just making really small increases so that they can do, if like things level set in 2 months, they can run a steeper discount during the Prime Day time frame, or just that lead up, or they'll be in a better spot come Prime Day if we're making those adjustments now in April versus making them in June, the month before Prime Day.
Pricing decisions on Amazon look at that trailing 90 days. When you said that, I had to like finger count. Where are we? April, May,
Close.
June,
Yeah,
July.
that's what I mean. Like if you're gonna make them, that's right. We're almost done with like a bunch of batches of that stuff, and so that's why I'd say if you're gonna make them with the trailing 90 days,
Yeah,
based on what we know has happened in the past with Prime
we're
Day,
right there. Yeah,
we
the
were like
pricing
on the
decisions right
edge.
now.
Yeah, we're on the
Really-
edge. So
really good point. Anyone else, any tips for how to maybe navigate this time, things that you can be proactively doing to mitigate some of the impact or make some different impacts in your business? Nate?
Yeah, I love what Robyn said, if you're using a subscription you haven't used in 6 months, maybe it's time to cancel it. Also, probably the best time to get extra quotes from your freight forwarder, right? Like majority of the time you want to work with the same freight forwarder, they start to like you get better rates. But if there's ever a time to get 7 different rates and have a bit of a bidding war, it's now. And so we're helping a lot of clients with that, and that's really important, is to make sure if let's say you are sourcing products from China and you are going to get hit with that tariff, you want your landed COGS to be as close as they were to what they were a week ago. And the best way to do that is by decreasing your carrier fees. If you are sourcing in China, probably start looking elsewhere, right? If you're in one of the countries that's now not getting tariff for 90 days, you might want to consider sending in a lot of inventory now and making sure that you are stocked up for the season. And so at least this year's landed COGS are going to be relatively the same. I think it's also very important. I know Tyler Jeffcoat, who's I've worked with since 2020 on the finance side of our business. He was the old founder of Seller Accountant, one of the Seller Labs conglomerates. Yeah, shout out Seller Labs. But yeah, I mean, there was something at the show talking about like track true landed COGS, and that was one of the most important things that he ever helped me do. And it can seem like kind of frustrating. It's better to just have it be shipped, have it as a different line item in your P&L or however you do it. But long story short, if you are able to really understand your landed COGS, you're able to make better decisions. And for us, we're just sending in a lot of inventory, and we have a great partner 30 minutes down the road in Mexico. We're able to store a lot of the products, tax-free, tariff-free. That could be a whole podcast in itself, but that's really helping us to overstock, have inventory with very, very low cost to sit for the rest of the year, so that we are safe. And luckily, you know, we kind of did that in Q1, but it's not too late to do that in Q2 now that it's been extended 90 days.
Yeah, and there are a lot of, I know for a lot of people who are on Amazon FBA exclusive, the thought of bringing in a ton of inventory can sound scary, but like Nate said, like, you know, there's a 3PL he works with for his businesses. We have a couple of 3PL partners as well for different areas of the US that we can make recommendations to. So there are ways to bring in more inventory earlier and not have the crazy Amazon FBA costs. Even Amazon AWD is an option, and we can help kind of talk you through that. And sorry, Robyn, I saw you come off mute, so
Yeah,
didn't mean
I
to
feel like
interrupt
I've already
you.
talked a lot, so you feel free to tell me shh. But I was gonna say, you know, if you have inventory that's on the water now, normally I would say a bonded warehouse is not usually a cost-effective thing, but in this particular situation, if you have inventory coming in from China, this might be the one time where, I mean, I'm sure they're having the best week ever, but having them taking a look at that, and that what Nathan said is really great. As long as you have the cash flow to be able to float things, if he takes all of the tariffs off tomorrow, will you still be able to afford ads? Will you still be able to afford your team members? So you need to make sure that that only works if you have the cash flow to do it. Cash is the fuel that runs your business. So if you're like a struggling SMB, you want to make sure you're thinking about both case scenarios, and trying to mitigate your risk as much as you can, because cash flow is going to be really important, especially as things finally shake out.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
or I know I think they were at Prosper, I think for the first time, but Settle is like, and there's a bunch of different options, but I know they're one that we've used in the past. And like, if you need to pay, their rates are very reasonable, and being able to make a bigger decision and have it, you know, you can run the numbers and see, okay, what is it going to be if I order half the inventory and the other half gets tariffed, versus I order all of this throughout that's going to supply me, so I have toys to sell the week before Christmas and I won't get tariffed. And usually, you know, if you're working with a good company like Settle, the numbers will make sense. But yeah, very important that you run and look at the numbers before you just say, let's double it and double your PO.
And then last thing on this, I'll make one more comment and then we'll move on to the social selling, which is the last of our topics before we close things out. Just talking about how cash flow is so important to this. Going back to your factories and, you know, renegotiating cost or renegotiating terms are two additional ways to kind of free up some of that cash flow. So if you can't mitigate the cost, or if you can't lessen what the costs are going to be, changing up those terms, of course, can help at least free up some cash flow in the meantime. So don't be, you know, afraid to go have those conversations with your factories, because this is going to impact them as well. And so being partners in that and making sure that it's mutually beneficial is going to be super important throughout this process.
And there was a question that came through, Jess.
Okay.
Somebody asked if we were hearing about discounting from China manufacturers who are concerned about getting stuck with the inventory.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's happening, because I think most of the panelists here at least are working with a lot more brands than resellers. It's not as noisy in our world, but if you are watching today and you are a reseller and you're somebody who is either white labeling or just buying stock of, you know, product that is out there, there is opportunity for you because of what's happening. So again, to go back to that comment that Robyn made earlier about competitor listings falling off, or, you know, there's opportunity to be found, unfortunately, in other people's misfortune. So be on the lookout for those things, because things changing so quickly, you may just need that opportunity that gives you a leg up right now to get through a difficult time. And those opportunities are out there. Thank you, Alexi.
Yeah, I mean, example, we did that for one of the brands. I think it was 2% was what we decreased their COGS just this week. And, you know, the tariffs are based off COGS, so that's also decreasing the tariff amount as well. So Yeah, now is absolutely that time. And I'm really great. We have a supply chain manager, Mr. Henry Chen, who is just phenomenal at doing that. I could never do it, but I've sat in on some of those calls while there was a debate in Mandarin back and forth. It's pretty intense. It's
Intense.
like watching the Olympics ping pong match. It's just back and forth, absolutely wild.
All right, 5 minutes I'm going to devote to social selling, and then I want to make sure everybody has a time to say something, closing comment. So social selling, to me, the biggest thing that I learned at Prosper, and interested to hear what anybody else has to say, but I thought of social selling as social commerce, where social commerce is really just the checkout part of it, and social selling is so much more than that. It's the influencer you're working with that is sending traffic somewhere else. You're just bringing awareness to your brand through social channels. I feel bad, Kristen, because I know GS1 actually was speaking in this topic area, and you missed that session because of being at my session. So thank you for coming to support me. I don't know that though, because of that, if you have, any thoughts or have any, got to see any of Shane's session on this and know what he was talking about.
Yeah, I unfortunately did not get to see any of it because I was in fact supporting Jessica, which I do not regret by any means. But I do know that they did talk a little bit about social selling. I think the main point they were trying to hit was by having those validated GS1 G10s, you're now a trusted seller. So yeah, speaking to TikTok made me buy it and things like that. Making sure as a seller, though, that you are someone that your buyers can trust. So if they're going to purchase something from you, that what they're getting is actually what they're getting. So having those validated G10s, I know that was a big topic of that presentation for them.
Yeah, and that's been a big topic for TikTok in general, because as TikTok Shop launched, and it is gaining in popularity, but it's been an area where people still see things on TikTok Shop and then go to Amazon to buy it because they don't trust TikTok as that. And so having, more brands join and more, validated brands join. I thought also, Rob, this might be an area that is really kind of part of your world with all of the video and UGC and all of that is part of social selling.
Oh yeah. So like social selling, I mean, so much of it revolves around video content as the medium for that. We talked about TikTok. We talked about the fact that you want a lot of people, just like influencers, just talking about your product, showing off the product. But you mentioned something interesting, which is like trust, which was making me think about something that I've been talking to a lot of brands about recently, which is I think one of the best ways to do this is you have these channels on YouTube and elsewhere that like do honest reviews of products. And it's not just all positive. Like when I like as a shopper, like I don't know if this is true for you all too, but like as a shopper, if I am watching a video of someone talking about a product, I'm kind of listening for like, are they only saying positive things? Is this like a sponsored deal? Like, are they getting paid? Like, I want the real truth. Like, is this a good product? So I will trust a piece of content that says a couple negatives about the product, but also like says the positives. I like trust that content more. And so I guess I sort of get the sense that I think a lot of the influencer marketing that has been working for the last however many years, I think things are shifting to where I think that's becoming so commoditized. It's really just become, there's a lot of noise, and I think that customers just really want to know, like, is this a good product? And I think that you can approach some of these channels and say, hey, like, review my product, like, give an honest review about it. There might be some interest. That's just an interesting thing that I don't know how many brands are really doing that approach, that I think is really worth exploring, is try to get YouTube followers and on TikTok, whatever, like people that really just review your products. Instead of like thinking about them as influencers, just they are influencers, but just don't be afraid to get that honest feedback, because I think there's a lot of trust with the customer with that kind of thing.
Yeah, the trust of the customer, and also that feedback for your business for what you can do to then fix your product and make it better for the future, or however you're packaging it or marketing it and all of those things.
Yeah, it's like actual good feedback that you should have. Yeah.
And one of those things that I didn't learn, like, until I really got involved in this industry that you pointed out, is like affiliate marketing kind of falls into the same area. I didn't know when I searched the internet for top 10 of something, and I was getting a list from a publication that I trust, that those top 10 lists were affiliate marketing paid positions. Right? So pro and con as a shopper, if you don't know that, make sure you know that you're being sold to, you're being marketed to, but as a brand, there's opportunity there too with the affiliates to get on those lists.
Yeah, exactly. And customers are getting very smart about all this. And so I think that authenticity and even being being more vulnerable with your brand and putting yourself out there, I think there's a lot of upside to that. Just that whole way of thinking about influencer marketing and getting yourself out there. Don't try to control the narrative around your product. Just get it. Just get people to talk about it. And sometimes even negative stuff is better than because more real.
Rob,
Right, yeah.
are you doing that with videos that you create as well? Like doing less of these like Apple promotions, dancing with colors, and more just authentic.
That's interesting. I mean, because it's interesting, right? Because we create there's a big ecosystem. Your brand needs a lot of different kinds of content, right? And so obviously we don't want, in the interest of authenticity, we're not gonna like make a video that seems to be an authentic video, review, but it's really something we crafted, right? We're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
But I do like, so we're here to kind of create the content that you need for your brand building, your branded content, your direct response ads, things like that. But like we're definitely encouraging, we're definitely consulting our clients to be pursuing like real YouTube channels and real social media influencers to be get their products in their hands, get them talking about it if they want to. Don't even pay. I mean, some of them, like Marquez Brownlee, does anybody know who that is? He's like a big YouTube tech reviewer guy. Like he will never take $1 to review a product. That would just undermine everything he's doing. So I would just say it's just kind of as a side thing. Like that's what I recommend, is like try to see who, just blast out your product to as many people as possible and see if anyone's willing to give it a review. And if they are, if whether it's a good or bad review, like run with that, promote it, do whatever you can. So
Awesome. All right, we have 3 minutes left. Love to respect everyone's time and wrap it up. And bye to Tyler. Thank you for always coming and supporting us, part of that Seller Labs family we were talking about earlier. Love to see that. So I want to give everyone here one last chance to share either just like one parting remark, one parting tip, or if you have something you want to promote for your business. And just real quick before I kick that off, when we wrap this down, panelists will drop off, but if you are here as an attendee, don't worry, we have someone behind the scenes who will keep this open so you can grab all those links and things out of the chat. So they will not disappear, and we will send a follow-up email tomorrow with the full recording, and we'll include any links as well. So, but yeah, let me go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to go backwards order of what I see on my screen. So Robyn, you are first to close us out.
Yeah, so I spoke about smart automations at Prosper, trying to figure out why is it some people are having great success and kind of why is AI not working for me? Breaking down some of the fallacies and some use cases and some, very specific things. And I'm going to expand out how we use AI to help us with titles and bullets a little bit because people ask me for that as well. So I'm going to redo that presentation as a webinar in 2 weeks. So if you go to marketplaceblueprint.com/auto. So marketplaceblueprint.com/auto. I will have the link to that webinar that you can join, and it will be recorded because I know that's always the first question. So
thank you for that. And we dropped the link in here, and Robyn, I made it easy on our side too. The link you shared with me yesterday now just has /Robyn Prosper at the end. So that's in the chat here for everyone. Kristen, you were next on my side.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say check out, we have a GS1 US podcast. It's called Next Level Supply Chain. But I'd say it's a super educational podcast. We have industry leaders on there as guests all the time to give tips, tricks. So that's a great resource. We also have coming up our GS1 US conference, which is Connect in Nashville this year, June 10th through 12th. And I believe there is a link in the chat for you guys to check that out.
Thank you for that. Rob?
yes. Okay. One quick last tidbit. I just want to leave some value if I can. Okay. So when you think about your sponsored brands video ads, segment them by search intent categories. Don't just make a lot of times one video is not the way to go. Think about your product, look at your long tail keywords, find multiple categories of search intent, make a video for each of those categories. You're going to see a big boost in your ROAS, as we've have experienced. And if that didn't make sense, hit me up and I'll explain it better. But but yeah, so you can check us out at videofresh.co, anything video related for your advertising and all that. So
Thank you for that. And Alexi, any last tips?
No, I know we're close on time, but I'd recommend if anyone has never gone to Prosper, that they go to Prosper next year, and it will be at the Wynn, so in Vegas.
It will. Dates have been announced. The site is live. Registration is not open yet, but you can go and get on the list to be reminded when that opens. Nate, wrap us up.
Yeah, didn't get to talk much about Shop Talk. I was going back and forth from
sorry.
Prosper and Shop Talk. Was able to speak on a panel there at Shop Talk. It was incredible. Maybe for another podcast can talk about it, but
Still working on getting videos and photo of that so we can share that with everyone.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'd say, we have a Prosper promotion going on where we're doing 50% off some of our services. So that is, I think, still happening for another week or so. So go team for that.
Yeah, reach out. We have a Prosper landing page, ao2.com, ao2management.com/Prosper. You can check out those specials there or reach out to any of us here on the podcast or on the webinar. We'll make sure you have our contact details here and in the follow-up email as well. So we are 1 minute over, which is pretty good considering all the content we covered and all the great people we had here. So again, all the panelists are going to drop off. You'll see our faces disappear, but there will be someone here keeping things open so you can grab those links out of the chat. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to everyone who joined us today, and we look forward to you joining us again next month. Bye, everyone.